so we'll start with a moment with a pause here. Keep your eyes closed. Center them on the spot between the eyebrows. Feel that you are totally open in heart and mind. What we'll be discussing will be the only truth there is, infinite love. We overlook it in everyday life, but it is all we need to know. Now, feeling quiet in mind and heart. Open your eyes. Okay, welcome. Recently, we did receive quite a few letters, and we have right before us 3 of them. If you could just make a short rundown on what the people are asking of the 3 letters.
Okay, sweetie. Yeah, these 3 letters, I'm not going to read the details of the letters, but they represent a trend in types of letters that we receive fairly often. Okay, so one of them says, I have a question after watching your video titled, Jesus is Ushering Us into the 5th Dimension. Some people say that we are currently ascending into the new world where the evil people will be left behind. While some people said that there's a bunch of evil people planning to kill numbers of people within the next few years through man-made disasters. Is this going to happen? If so, how can we avoid this on a personal level?
Okay, really.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a common theme, that the idea of the rapture or conspiracy theories or separate. So the next letter, another common theme we have, has to do with being a renunciate. Basically, the question is, how can I let go of my ego and not be homeless? So that's often a very common one. People think that not having an ego or awakening means that you don't seem to do things in the world, or you're not successful. And then the third one has to do with vibrations. People ask, how do I raise my vibration? And is a high vibration synonymous with love and a low vibration synonymous with fear? And those are pretty common questions we get from time to time. So what do they have in common, sweetie?
So how do I address this? One of the things that causes all these questions is the idea that you are a personal being. We often believe that we are a person. I know that this might sound strange, especially hearing maybe for the first time, but there is no such thing as a person. It is a oneness. When you realize this oneness, even minutely in the beginning, there's a feeling of clarity, a release from the mind and the opening of the heart. Now, when I say there is no person, you cannot get rid of the person that you think you are. It is simply this, that everything that you think about you. I'd like to quote you something from a great master, which I actually met just the last few days. His name is
Dietrich Wolsak.
Dietrich Wolsak, right?
Dietrich Wolsak.
Founder of Choose Once Again. And he said the following. He said, what is the difference between Hitler and Jesus? Now, comes the answer. The difference is this, that Jesus doesn't listen to his thoughts. Or that's the way it was put, right?
Yeah, he doesn't believe his thoughts.
That's right.
Or listen, it's the same thing. Doesn't take them to
Jesus doesn't believe his thoughts. That is it in a nutshell. Now, when we think we are a personal person, we believe we are separate from the totality, we immediately engage in a fantastic fund of thoughts having to do with us, having to do all about us. this can become such a habit that everything starts centering towards what you think you are. Then this absorbed thinking will begin to draw to you dangers to its ability to sustain itself. In other words, there is always a danger everywhere. The reason is because it is not real, but we make ourselves so real that we are trying to protect it all the time. Trying to protect the ego mind, the person you think you are, is just like punching the air. It's the same thing. All the energy is spent doing nothing, achieving nothing. But in time, when we learn to become very silent and quiet, then we go into the heart. Now, the heart, I don't mean the physical heart. I mean the totality of you that is feel that connection to everything that is. See, there's only oneness, really. We're all one being, and there is no separation among us at all. And the reason we see the separation is because we become conditioned into it. And it has caused all the wars and all the strivings and all the suffering. Now, I call this oneness God, but some people don't like the word God. I love it. This oneness is in all of us. I'll give you an example that I've used lately. I can't help myself because I keep thinking about it. At our place, a man brought his daughter with him, and she was asleep at the time. And he was sitting down on the couch and she was sleeping. And all of a sudden, something happened. Maybe we were starting raising our voices or whatever. And she opened her eyes. She never been in this place. She never saw me before. But all I saw was her smile. And her smile, I never forgot ever since it happened. It contained more beauty, more silence, more wisdom even than I've ever seen in a human form. So what I'm saying is this, that what causes us to be at peace, to be in love, to be happy, is an emptiness of mind and fullness of heart. But maybe I should explain this a little further. Emptiness of mind and fullness of heart. Yesterday we found a book at the library, and you gave it to me, and then you said to me that this is what the Buddhists follow.
Emptiness.
Emptiness.
It was a book on.
Right.
It was a book that explored three people's approach to emptiness: one through Buddhism, one through a Christian mystic, and one through psychology.
Right, and there was a lot of research done in this book, and you can imagine when I saw this book, I just wanted to have it because I love research on this. And incidentally, I myself wrote a book on emptiness. This here, and the four unknown facts of reality, and it's something that I wasn't as aware of before as I was then at that particular time. Now you might say, but why did you write about something that you didn't think about? It's a long story, but what happened is that some people had asked me questions about my own life and what I did in the past. And so I thought, well, so many people asked me, what have you learned about in the 50 years that you've been teaching? And I said, well, I've learned to trust myself. I trust who I am. And I was amazed at the amount of letters that I got from it. And I thought, now, how am I going to answer it? So therefore, to make a long story short, I went to bed. I thought about it. Then there was an energy that got me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I started writing it. And the one thing that came to mind is this, that unless the mind reaches emptiness, a point of emptiness, there can be no peace, no love, no real understanding, no cessation of wars and strivings and suffering. And the emptiness of mind, which we think of it as idiocy sometimes because we don't know any better, we see it as an empty mind. It isn't an empty mind. It is a full heart. The two cannot go together. When the heart is full, the mind is empty. When the mind is empty, the heart is full.
So if the mind is full, then the heart is empty because we're stuck in our head. Is that true? That's the opposite.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was this man too that we just mentioned. He made a quote which is so beautiful, and he said, "What is the difference between Hitler and Jesus?" Right.
Right. What we were just talking about. Yeah, the difference is that Hitler didn't believe his thoughts, so he had an empty mind.
Right.
And that was the love, right? That was the unconditional love that radiated out into the world.
That's right. Yes. So in other words, Hitler and Jesus, the only difference between them, and you can see the difference in the world affairs, but Hitler always believed his thoughts. And so he tried to make them real. And they become real because anything that you believe you can do, you can do. You see, that is the power of the force of life itself. Jesus did not believe his thoughts because they were thoughts. Now, one thing that has caused a lot of conflict between the people that I taught the 5-step method of quieting the mind is that I ask them to just watch the thoughts and not think about the thoughts until they come to the point where they begin to see the space between the thoughts. And then they realize that the very space between the thoughts is who they really are. But the question always arose, how do I quiet the mind? You really don't. You really don't quiet the mind. What you do is simply become more attentive to what is in the moment, which is always love. Did you know that love is always present? The one thing that is with us all the time is the love.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. You have to bear with me. My memory sometimes fails me. Okay, that's right. Unconditional love is the very truth of our being, of who we are. That is, and that if you go into it, you'll find that that's all that exists, believe it or not. Now you can have people writing you millions of letters, making up a million people, but they all seem to be different. They're not. You'll find that whenever someone has written something that has disturbed him or her, it's all about because they think they are personal and individual. There is no such thing as an individual. There is only oneness. And it is that oneness and the feeling of that oneness that the peace of mind starts to awaken and to feel the fullness of the heart. The fullness of the heart is that our concentration, instead of becoming about us, it becomes about it. In other words, you see a flower, it becomes it. See, the first time we saw the flower in the cover of the book, we both had an epiphany.
It came out of emptiness.
Came out of emptiness, right? Right. And the big question was, what created such beauty, such a flower? The thought is, emptiness created it. But then we think of emptiness as something that doesn't exist. And that is not true at all. You see, we often think that only the physical exists. The physical is a very temporary state of existence, and it seems to be real. But in truth, it is the spirit that is real. But the spirit is eternal and ever-changing. And to the spirit, emptiness is the very nature of its being, because there is no time and space in that being. You want to ask me something?
Yeah. What you were just describing as, you were saying that these three issues that seem to be common threads that we get in questions on email.
That's
They're
right.
all trying to preserve an illusory separate self that they think they are, which is this
That's
person.
right. Because they think they are separate.
And
Yes.
so this illusory separate self is really just a collection of beliefs.
Right.
And forgiveness, through forgiveness, we're undoing these beliefs. We're in your, for instance, the 5 steps where you watch your thoughts and you get between the thoughts. In addition to being able to get between the thoughts, you can also catch a pattern of thoughts. So we don't exist as an individual. We've just attached ourselves to these beliefs that we've been carrying.
That's right.
Seemingly carrying.
That's
and so,
right. Very good. Yes.
And
yes.
forgiveness itself is actually
and
recognizing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness actually is the only way that can relieve us from this turmoil, this suffering, this incredible problem creating. You see, because when people start asking, what will happen to me if I'm homeless? Well, first of all, if you're meant to be homeless, you're going to be anyway, if that is in the script. Now, when I'd say script, what I mean is this, that the life that we are living now has already been lived. This is nothing new. We're just going through another repetition of what we had gone through before. This time we're repeating it so that we learn what we didn't learn before. We keep repeating the same life over and over and over again. Okay, the same mistakes will be done, but we learn by seeing that they're not serving us. And that's how we grow. Sometimes it's called reincarnation, sometimes it's called many other things, but let's not go into that. The point is this, that the spirit never begun and will never end. But the process of reincarnation, the process of embodying the body in the beginning, and I don't want to go into the details of that, but the reason we chose the body, because we wanted to experience it physically. We wanted to see what it would be like to live on my own. What would
to be
like
separate from
to
the
be
totality.
separate.
Right.
But that very need of separation created the most horrendous suffering known. You see, and so every problem that we have is created by this separation,
which is really illusory.
Which is illusory.
Which is why our judgments.
But there's another
us.
thing to that illusion too, is that if you keep on thinking something about the illusory separation, that separation increases, not decreases. In other words, it becomes more, what's the word, fruitful? No, the word fruitful.
Solid.
Solid, right, becomes so solid that we create our own suffering all the time. We keep increasing it. So instead of learning and growing forward, we keep regressing. Every time that you start to take care of yourself, to live a good life, to have lots of money, to be rich, yes, you will achieve it. If you want it, you'll achieve it, definitely, because the power is there, the power of belief. But we have to understand what the power of belief is. The power of belief is a very essential thing and an important thing, but it's also a very destructive thing. And every time you think a destructive thought, that becomes real in your life. See, so that's the power of belief. So this is how we learn. When I suffer, it's not working, right? It's not working the way I want it to, the way I want life. So the more we empty ourselves, the more happy we become, until we begin to learn so much the nothingness of the body and the fullness of the spirit. And the fullness of the spirit is, of course, happiness, contentment, peace, love, joy. Did you know that love is the only reality there is? You know, when I used to talk to people, and I used to say, the only reality, nothing is real, nothing. Love is the only thing that is real, and the only thing that makes you become more humane, more understanding, the only thing. So if something is not bringing you happiness, it doesn't work. Simple. We think we know that, but we don't, because we keep trying to overcome it. And then of course, we suffer more. And then so we go to psychologists and other professors who tell, what am I doing wrong? But they don't tell you, you're not in oneness. So they try to help you in a personal way, but it doesn't work. I studied psychology, I studied philosophy, I went through so many things, but nothing works. Nothing works. You know what works? Emptiness. Having an empty mind and seeing how beautiful everything really is when you go beyond the thought of it, but to the fullness of it. And when you go to the fullness of it, you see nothing but love. Nothing but love. When you start seeing only love, now you know you're going someplace, you're getting somewhere. Where do we go from here?
Well, you just said that all there is love. Love is the only thing that can make us happy. And that emptiness is this goal that we have. How do we actually, emptiness, we can't just go, emptiness, I'm empty. What seems to happen is we seem to be unhappy or upset from time to time. And
that's okay.
And what we really need to do is look into the thoughts that are associated
and forgive it right away, and it's as if it's never been.
Right. And those thoughts are almost always a judgment against a fellow person, whether it be one person or an organization.
Right. It's always a separation. You see, it creates more and more and more separation instead of a oneness. So that separation creates more suffering because of itself.
So when we have like a negative judgmental thought, let's say about our boss or a coworker.
Right.
Right. So we've had this negative judgmental thought, and then every day we go to the office, we're like, oh no, I've got to go back to the office. So the problem isn't that there's anything wrong with the office or the coworker. The problem is we've now created this thought. So now, because there's only one of us, we've projected this out. So we're now seeing what we projected. So in that case, we really need to see the truth of what's going on. So the office, which we think is a horrible, hateful, difficult place, is actually a beautiful, beautiful breeding ground for learning about this love as we forgive.
That's right. And what we think of as an awful place, we have to stand back and see what makes it an awful place. It's what I think about it.
Right.
You see, it's always what you think about it. But thought is never real. And this is when the great master said, what is the difference between Hitler and Jesus, is that Jesus never believed his thoughts. He was always empty. And through that emptiness, he was a great force for good, a great force for perfection, really. Okay, because, but anyway, I don't want to go into that. So, so there is one way to deal with all the suffering that is happening. There are no solutions to problem. People write so many letters. There was a time many years ago, I used to answer every email that I had, and I used to have about 100 a day. I'm kidding you not. And I meant well, and I used to be all tired out, but I never reached anybody because I treated everyone as a separate person with their personal problem. There are no personal problems. There is only the personal creating the problem.
So that's the problem.
And that's the problem.
The problem is we think we're separate.
That's
we're
right. Exactly. All you need to do is think something personal for a moment, and you get offended.
Right. So in the case I just said, you don't like a coworker in the office, right? So you have a thought, they're judging me, but your thought, they're judging me, is you judging them?
You're judging them.
Is you judging them? So we're trying to desperately protect an illusory being that doesn't exist. In the moment we forgive the thought, there's just a sense of oneness or connection.
That's right. That's
or connection.
Right.
And that's why the Course so strongly says forgiveness of a brother, not of a situation, not of an idea, but the actual forgiveness of a judgment we hold against a brother, against another seeming individual, which is just a projection of us.
Projection of us. Now, those of you who have written these letters to us, we take it for your faith in us and that we can help you, but we can only help you if you help yourself. And with this, we mean that you start to see that this is all being created in your own mind. And when you have a thought and you believe it to be real, it becomes real, because this whole world we live in is a thought. is a thought, is a mind manifest. See, in truth, there's only spirit. And spirit is not a mind. Spirit is the eternal essence, never beginning, never ending. That is the very nature of being, and the fullness of it is love, unconditional love. We cannot learn that until we begin to see that what works in us is simply seeing that we are not living from love. We're living from separation. Now, what do you mean separation? If I think a negative thought about you, I'm separating from you. That's simple. You see?
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. And so the moment you create the separation, you are suffering. Immediately there is discomfort. And you carry that discomfort and you try to fix it, you try to figure it out, you try to understand it. What happens? It gets worse. Because you made it personal, and there is nothing personal in the world. Really. It's all one whole, playing the role of separate individuals. There's only oneness. And that oneness, I call it God. But some people don't. They call it something else, but that's not the point. The point is there is only this particular oneness. We learn from life only to the extent that we love. And how do you love? The moment you take anything personally, you are offended, you are hurt, you are suffering. What do? Forgive it. Forgive yourself for creating that self-suffering. And the moment you start this forgiveness, and it's such a beautiful thing. It can bring you so many insights. And I would say that the only thing that you need to do, honest to goodness, you don't need to do anything, is to keep forgiving yourself every time you don't feel good about yourself. And the moment you keep doing that, you move deeper and deeper from mind into the heart. When I say heart, I mean the very center, core, and essence of you that knows. Because there's a knowing in us. And how did it come about? Well, you see, we were always pure aware beings, always. We always existed. No one was ever born. But there came a time, it's called the Big Bang, when consciousness came into being. Consciousness, through consciousness, which created time and space in order to survive in a physical form, also created a handicap, the inability to go deep into who is doing what. You see? So therefore, what I'm trying to say here is that the consciousness itself that makes us know that we know also can be a disaster in the sense that might separate us in our understanding of our oneness. Am I making myself clear?
Mm-hmm. So that's the intellectual mind creates a separation. So the consciousness or the ego consciousness is creating a separation.
That's right. It creates a separation. Yeah. So consciousness, although it has a lot of perfect things in it, and it's eternal in its nature, eternal, yet it gives us the ability that we are a personal person, separate. And that is the biggest mistake that we do. And we have to go through so much repeating an incarnation over and over and over and over, repeating the same mistakes, maybe even greater ones, until we finally learn one important lesson. You see, and of course, when you take different forms, you're still you. You're always you. Even the form might be different. You're always you until finally you come to the point where you say enough is enough. And when you say that and you stop, then what happens is that you're no longer in time and space. And you go back to spirit. And spirit is perfect.
What you just said is exactly like the movie Groundhog Day.
Oh, really?
Basically, he lives his life over and over again every day. At the very beginning, he's this very difficult unsavory character who dislikes everybody and is using everybody to get his own means. Every day he wakes up and it's the same day. And at first, at the beginning, he doesn't like people and he wants them to get out of the way. But then when he realizes he's living it over and over again, he starts to manipulate them to get what he wants, recognizing that he's living the same day over and over.
So he's learned through those repetitions.
But then he comes to learn that that's not satisfying, and that eventually the only thing that becomes satisfying is to just love these people and just let whatever happens. And on that very moment that he gives up trying to be an individual, movie, the next day, of course, it's a beautiful movie. It's just like what you're saying. It's like we're reliving. The Course says trials are but lessons presented once again where we previously made a faulty choice. Now we can make a better one.
Oh, beautiful.
So it's beautiful.
Yeah. So what I have said to you might seem very complicated, but and this is the paradox. It is so simple. It is so simple that a child in its innocence knows this truth automatically without realizing it knows it, because it begins to live it. And that's why innocence is beautiful. That's why an uncluttered mind, you see, is so perfect. Because when you stop becoming so concerned, then you simply live the life you already lived, but much better. You live it much better because now you've learned, you see. And what you learn, it's now you might say we repeat over and over and over again. We can never be better or worse or anything like that. No, essentially you should be better because you're learning what you've done before. But if you don't, then you keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Yes. And this is what we do. People think that if I have more lives, I will learn more. Yes, it's true. But what you're learning is what you've already not learned in the previous 4. So we keep repeating the same story over and over again. We are we are all creators, really. And until we achieve a mind that is empty.
That's right. Till we come to this life where we finally have the tool and the means to wake up and to get and to finally forgive and not have to come back and learn the lesson again. And even seeming in this life, we're presented with similar challenges over and over again.
Over and over and over again.
Until we can finally recognize it's coming from us.
It's all coming from us. Never anybody or nothing, no one, I'm not using good English here. Nobody can do anything to you that you have not already created within yourself. And therefore made that person do that to you. You see? Like a woman is raped in the street and oh my gosh, a lot of furor goes on, you know. This guy must be a monster. Did you know that she created that incident? She needed that to happen for her to learn what she needs to learn. He in turn raped, which of course sees the nonsense of it, the suffering of it that he created, so that he learns not to do it again. So every being is repeated, but nothing is happening to you that you don't create yourself all the time. Why? Because there's only you. There is no you and me. There's only you appearing as you and me. Don't try to figure it out. I have it. But one thing I know is that we're all one. And it's all one big, huge family of love. It's one love feast.
I have a beautiful quote from Gary Renard that sums it up.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Could you read that, please?
Yes, from Gary Renard's Your Immortal Reality, How to Break the Cycle of Birth and Death, which is perfect because this is what we've been talking about. So Gary says in the book, the key to enlightenment lies in a secret that very few people have ever known, but which Jesus knew well. The way you will experience and feel about yourself is not determined by how other people look at you and think about you. The way that you will experience and feel about yourself is actually determined by how you look at and feel about them. ultimately, this determines your identity. You will identify yourself either as a body or as a perfect spirit, as either divided or whole, depending on how you see others.
Oh,
so
that's
it's a
so
mirror.
beautiful.
So how we
Yeah.
see others is a mirror of what we think of ourselves.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Yeah, beautiful. So I think you've received a lot of a lot of stuff that you might have questions about. Maybe we should stop here and answer some of these questions.
Let me see if there's any questions in the chat. Okay, Laura had a question, and she said, can we actually change our beliefs? And what about those of which we're not aware? For instance, the subconscious.
Yeah. First of all, you don't need to remember about the subconscious or unconscious or whatever it is. The stillness of the moment by having a quiet mind is all that is necessary. But one way to always be correct, to be good, is learn to be very, very still. Still to the point where there is no disturbing thoughts or questions going back and forth. Nothing is disturbing. And then when you achieve a moment of equanimity, you can be sure that you are becoming more and more balanced in the knowing. Now, if something happens that disturbs you and you cannot stop thinking about it and it completely wrecks you, okay, remember one thing: forgiveness is our only way to deal with that which confounds the mind. Okay, now the question arises now, which is very important, is how to forgive. Mm-hmm. Now we all do it differently. How do you do yours? When I see something that I've done and brought a little bit of strife or discomfort, I forgive it by seeing it for what it is. It's just something that happened and it's gone. It's finished. Okay. How do you do it?
I realize, first of all, I recognize that I'm upset. And then I realize that upset is the reason for that upset is actually being covered up by some seemingly external event that I'm saying is the cause of the upset. You know, let's say, for instance, I get cut off on traffic. Mm-hmm. That caused my upset. So in that case, I can't forgive because I haven't got to the point of what it is that actually created the upset. So what really created the upset is some deep-seated, unforgiving thought that we have about ourselves. Really, it comes right back down to we destroyed love. Somehow, some way, we think we're guilty. We have, Laura talked about the unconsciousness or subconscious. You don't have to go digging into it. Every time you're upset, you can be sure that it came to the surface and then you covered it up with an external event to make it look like it was the cause of the upset. But if we can catch that thought at that moment, take a deep breath, catch it, recognize that it's not true, that there's no way I have the ability to destroy love. It's not possible. And in that moment, not only am I innocent, so is the guy that cut me off in traffic.
You can destroy love. Love is the only reality we've got, believe it or not. We're all one. Yeah. Love is unconditional, absolutely perfect. And what a gift. When you realize that, no wonder, you find peace. It's so beautiful.
And it works.
And it works. And only love works. Nothing else works. Money, power, nothing works. Love. Love is the only thing that works. Love is the only thing that makes sense in an insane world, really. Because in a way, it is insane. That's why there's everybody's going. But we have to go through what we have to go through in order to learn it. If we try to avoid it, it merely repeats. And we know through experience, anybody over 35 knows this, that whatever you try to run away from, it chases you to repeat it again and again and again. See why? Because your purpose is one, to keep on learning, growing, expanding until you come to that point of becoming one with the totality, with the oneness. I call it one with God. Yeah.
And what's extraordinarily beautiful is once you forgive, it just seems to flow naturally. Suddenly you're coming from love, or love is just, love takes care of the situation. It's really, I mean, A Course in Miracles, that's the miracle.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. 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 Course in Miracles. And that's the many miracles starts happening in your life too when you do it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and incidentally, the master I mentioned earlier, he's also a master of A Course in Miracles too.
Dietrich Wolsack.
Dietrich Wolsack.
Yeah, he has an organization called Choose Again.
Yeah, yeah.
Where she basically has a 6-step forgiveness process that's really beautiful.
Yeah,
it takes people back to their early belief systems where they thought they were something other than love.
Yeah. And the guy had gone through so much in the war, and he was treated badly by the Japanese during World War II.
Yeah, he was born in during World War II in a prison camp in Indonesia, a Japanese prison camp in Indonesia.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Just almost like you being born or having World War II breakout and being bombed when you were 6.
Yeah, when I was 6. Yeah, all I knew is people being blown up, houses everywhere. Yeah, and we had nothing to eat, but we survived, and we made it. Okay. Next question.
Okay, here's a question. How can we viscerally feel this oneness beyond understanding it intellectually?
There is no intellectual at any time.
Yeah, and actually, whoever wrote this said that actually answered what we said, answered that question. But we could talk about it again.
Yeah. The oneness is so beautifully experienced, you know. Spend time with puppies and little kids who are still in their heart, who are innocent. See, the most beautiful quality that we all have and that we can re-achieve is called innocence. And that's what happens when we wake up. When we wake up, that doesn't mean that we remember more or we're more intelligent. What happens is that we're more innocent because we go back to the basics of the child, really.
Right. That's what Jesus says, lest you be as little children.
Oh, that's right too. Yeah.
And also the meek shall inherit the earth. It's the same thing. This empty vessel of unconditioned love.
That's right. Love. Yeah. And incidentally, even though we quoted these things, we're not talking about Christianity here, okay? We're not talking about any religion, whatever. Religion is another man-made thing that creates more suffering. And I was brought up a Catholic, and I know what suffering is. And it was the ignorance that I was taught, that I am sinful, that I am bad, that sex is dirty, that this is this and this is that. And then you find it's all just lies. You have to redo everything that you've been conditioned to believe.
It turns out you're innocent after all.
You're innocent after all. That's right. Yeah. We're innocent. Yeah. So did we answer that question?
Yeah. No? Does anybody have any more questions? Or anybody have a question?
Can you read that?
Oh, I already read it. Yes.
Okay. I have to leave everything for my Suzy because I'm blind, so I can't read anything.
I have a question, Burt and Suzy. Hi, this is Shayla. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Great to be with you again. Well, so sometimes what happens is I forget that I am, and I get sucked into the everyday kind of craziness in this imaginary world. So, you know, and basically sometimes it becomes difficult to um, to go back to this present moment and become empty, you know, but I still manage to do it. I sometimes get sucked in, and you are exactly right, because I see others as separate individuals, and I believe that ego plays the part, so it's a whole mixed bag of things. But the suffering goes definitely back to sometimes myself believing that I am a person and not just a spirit. I forget that I am a spirit. And whenever I believe I'm a person, I am, either mood is not good or things are not going well. So,
see how wise
yes,
you are? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
I used to ask myself, why are things repeating? Why are these things repeating? Like, let's say, depression. Why is it coming
Repeating,
again and again
repeating.
and again?
That's right.
Until I started to, until I started listening to Eckhart Tolle, to you, you know, and started opening myself to these things that I have not encountered before. So that is why this has opened up incredible opportunity to be the spirit. I remember, Bert, you saying you never change. The I am never changes. It's always there, but it gets covered up by the persona and by, you know, things that we are
Right.
surrounded by. So anyway, that was just
And
my
so what do you have to do in order to become the real you?
what I have to, I find that I cannot think things through. So thinking is not the way out.
That's right.
I sit down and try to get quiet and empty. As you say,
That's it.
emptiness is the key.
Become empty again.
Yeah.
See, the reason I asked you, what do you have to do? See, I was also playing a little teaser there. You
Yes.
don't have to
Yes.
do anything to be
Exactly.
you. You don't have to do any. You're beautiful as you are, just as you are. The very fact that you're attending this talk means you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to expand.
Yes.
Once you have that desire, let that desire take over. You see, but you're already okay as you are. Really believe it and know it.
Yeah.
There is nothing more powerful than the love that God has for us. If you don't like the word God, that the oneness is. And when you begin to feel that love, you find that love solves everything. You love an individual, they love you back, everybody has fun. Love is the only thing that works. Love is the only reality. Love is the only truth.
Yes.
You see, and you don't need anything else. So remember that you don't need to work hard at this at all. All you need to do now is take a deep breath and say, I am.
Exactly. And
That's
that's the
it.
beauty. And I mentioned before that that's coming back home. That's coming back
That's
to who you
writing back
are.
home.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being part of this journey for me, because I was really identified by the thoughts, and living through the thoughts is a curse, because the life becomes extremely difficult if you really identify with the thought process and you are not aware that the thoughts are not necessarily even yours. Then the life becomes very, very
Right. And at
painful.
that point, let me intercede for a moment. At that
Mhm.
point, become aware that all you have to do is forgive it.
Yes.
Yeah, you see, because if you don't forgive it, you begin to feel guilty for having done that. No, no. The point is take a deep breath and forgive it.
Yeah.
Be clean, be like a child again, be pure again, you see? And as you keep forgiving it, that very forgiveness itself becomes stronger and stronger and stronger in you, to the point where you begin to live life in a way you never thought was possible.
And when you say forgive it, are you giving forth, or are you forgiving yourself, who are you really forgiving?
You're forgiving yourself because what happens is that when you have a problem, you always think someone or something has caused it.
Yeah.
Okay, the point is that all these things are caused by us, by our very way of looking at things. So you really forgive yourself. You give yourself for thinking and such a thing, but that doesn't mean you feel bad for having done it. You say forgiveness means that, oh, it happened, this was a mistake, you see, and then maybe laugh a little bit once because to make sure that you don't get caught in it. Nothing remains real to you when you forgive it. The moment you forgive it, it's done for, it's finished. See, that is the beauty of it. But you have to know in your mind, it's over, it's finished. I don't have to think about it.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. It's beautiful what you said, because forgiveness, at first, it's something we seem like we have to do, and we practice it more and more, but eventually it turns to trust, like you said in your book.
Yes.
And then it just becomes automatic.
It becomes automatic. Yes.
It gets to the point where we know we're not a separate entity, that
Yeah.
there's only this oneness or this unconditional love, and we can't do anything to destroy it. Or
You
harm
you
it.
cannot destroy oneness. You cannot even destroy your own love. You might do it to yourself, but it's there. It's the reality. Reality cannot be destroyed. Reality is. Just think of those words, is.
Beautiful.
Every time I think the word is, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. See, something that is, has no beginning, has no end, cannot be manipulated, cannot be changed, cannot be done with it. It is, just is, you know. Sometimes you see a beautiful flower like we did, and he says, you know, what makes it beautiful? What is it? It just is, you know. And when you see something as is, that very isness is the perfection of it. And that's how you begin to understand yourself. I am. I just am. And you're more than a body, you know. And when you begin to feel that totally inside you, that very feeling, knowing, it's earth-shaking actually, because you begin, all of a sudden you get up the next day and you feel so good. Why am I feeling so good? Aha, look what you did the night before. You forgave yourself and believed it. You feel like a child playing.
And you see the power of it.
And you see the power of it, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And if you have money worries, people tell you give different ways to make money, don't believe them. You know, I had money and I lost it. I had money and I lost it. We're going through a period now which is low, but it doesn't matter. The money is always there to have enough to eat, to sleep, to do whatever needs to be done, you know. So never worry about anything. Just be you, because you are beautiful more than you can ever realize.
I love what you said about is, because it reminded me of how the Course starts. It says, nothing real can be threatened.
Nothing unreal exists.
Therein lies the peace of God.
Therein
So
lies
eventually forgiveness just gets right down to that in the end. At first, it seems like a process where, okay, I'm upset. I had these thoughts against my wife or whatever. Those aren't true. So at first, it seems like a process, but eventually it's just, I am. Or God is.
I am. That's it. I am. Yeah. Yeah. That is the height of it. Yeah. It's an innocent feeling of being. You haven't achieved anything. You're not better than anybody else. How can you be? You're one with everything. You see? But there is that feeling, I'm okay. You know, I have to say this very often to myself. I have to forgive myself very often because I'm blind. And sometimes it gets so bad that even my own apartment, I fall around. And Suzy is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And she's always there. But she reminds me also that it's okay, Burt. And the moment she says it's okay, even my sight gets a little bit better. at that moment, which I can function. So nothing is unbearable, nothing. Everything is bearable. Because when you know the truth, you achieve peace, a peace that cannot be destroyed by anything or anyone. There's no life or death that can touch you when you find the truth of your eternal being. And you're eternal, you're never born, you never die. You are forever. And the peace and the love and beauty that comes with it is beyond imagination. I talk from experience because I died twice. Okay, are there any questions?
Okay, it's almost 5 o'clock. Is there any last questions?
Oh, it's 5 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Burt and Suzy, for your beautiful sharing and guidance on this journey to realize that we are all one.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. And I have a thought to leave with everyone before we sign off. And this thought is, and it's going back to the idea of judgment and forgiveness. It says in the Course that if the meaning of the last judgment is objectively examined, it is quite apparent that it is really the doorway to life. The last judgment is the last judgment you make, and what is left is this emptiness or this pure and beautiful unconditional love.